All right, so let's work through questions 34 through 41. All right, what is a common factor for expression 24x squared, 16x, and 144? Okay, so let's write these out. All right, common factor says GCF. Let's find out what's in common. All right, well, there's no x's in common, so I can't factor an x out. What I do see, though, is 24 and 16. I know by my mental math that 24 and 16 are both divisible by 8 evenly. So let's see if 144 is, and it is, okay? So we're going to factor out an 8. Well, 24 divided by 8 is 3, 16 divided by 8 is 2, and 144 divided by 8, as we just calculated, is 18. So what am I left with? I am left with a 3 and an x squared, a 2x, and then an 18. Well, looking at my answers, I have two factors. I have an 8 and I have a 3x squared plus 2x plus 18. And that seems to be option C. Okay. All right, let's look at number 35. Again, we're factoring. So my mind jumps automatically to GCF, excuse me. So let's, because I have x's and y's and all that mess. So let's go ahead and write this out. All right, well, let's see. I know that 6 and 9 are both divisible by 3. And so let's see if 42, yep, 42 is divisible by 3. I have no x's and no y's to factor out. So let's just work with that 3 right now. Well, that 6 divided by 3 is 2, negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3, and negative 42 divided by 3 is negative 14. So I'm left with a 2x squared y squared, and then a negative 3xy, and then a negative 14. Well, that doesn't look like anything I have over here. So, but what I do see is I do see a 3 has been factored out. Okay, so I can automatically get rid of b and d because I have my 3's factored out. Okay. What I can also see in my answer choices is that if I were to multiply this binomial to this binomial, I would be multiplying a y squared times a y squared, which would give me a y to the 4th power, which is not in my problem, okay? So the answer choice that would be most appropriate and that is correct would be option C. All right, 36. What are the zeros? Aha, what are zeros? Okay, zeros, other words, solutions, roots, and x-intercepts, all right, of the function represented by the quadratic expression. So if something says, what are the solutions? What are the roots? You're going to factor. And I see that a is greater than 1. Okay, so I'm going to use the slip and slide method. So 2x squared plus x minus 3. The slip and slide method says, take this first value, a value, and multiply it by your c value. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And then let's use big X on this portion. So negative 6 and 1. Well, 3 and negative 2. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So I have the two binomials x plus 3, x minus 2. And then I need to come back to this original a value, and I need to divide this by 2 and this by 2. Well, what I see is that 3 and 2 cannot be evenly divided, so I'm going to slide the 2 back out front. So 2x plus 3. But 2 and 2 can be evenly divided, so x minus 1, because negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And then I'm going to set each one equal to 0 and solve. So let's subtract that 3. And then let's divide by 2. So x is negative 3/2. And then just add the 1. X is positive 1. So positive 1 and negative 3/2. Let's see. Negative 1 and negative 1. That says negative 2/3. We want negative 3/2. So A would be my option. Okay. All right, 37. What is the vertex of the graph? So if you remember, if we're in standard form, in order to find vertex, you need to do negative b divided by 2a. Well, let's see. Negative b divided by 2 times a. Well, my b value is 10, and my a value is 1. So if I plug this in my calculator, that'll give me negative 5. Well, I can automatically get rid of a and b because I know my x value is -5. Now to find my y value, I'm going to take this -5 and I'm going to plug it back in for this x and for this x. So that gives me -5 squared plus 10 times -5 minus 9. So in our calculators, -5 squared plus 10 times -5 and then minus 9 gives me -34. So that would lead me to D being my solution. All right, question number 38. Which of these is the result of completing the square? Oh, completing the square. So here we go. X squared plus 8x, all right? And then equals, and I'm going to move that -30 onto the other side, so it's going to become a +30. Like pretend you're adding the 30 and adding the 30. All right, completing the square says, take this, divide by 2, square it, add to both sides. All right, and then this right here factors out into x plus 4 squared, right? We can do big X, 16 and 8, and our numbers are 4 and 4. So I have an x plus 4 and an x plus 4. When I have two of the same thing, I can just write that thing squared. Whoops, you missed all that, sorry. 16 and 8, my numbers are 4 and 4, so if I have two of the same binomials, I can write it once and square it. And then equals, well, 30 plus 16 is 46, but we're going to move it back to the other side, so x plus 4 squared. If I subtract 46, it becomes negative. So let's see, B would be my option. All right, 39. The expression -x squared plus 70x minus 600 represents a company's profit for selling X items. For which number of items sold is the company's profit equal to 0? So we're going to set this equal to 0. All right, oops, that's 600. 600, all right? And when I have a quadratic set equal to 600, okay, that tells me to factor. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply both sides by -1, all right? So I can get rid of that pesky little negative out there. And then I'm going to use big X. So two numbers that multiply to give me 600 and add to give me -70, -10 and -60. So x minus 10 and x minus 60. And then let's set those equal to 0. So I would add 10, and this would give me +10. And then I would add 60, and this would give me +60. So 10 and 60, option C would be my answer. All right, so for question 40, I may need some extra space, so I'm going to go out here. All right, a garden measuring 8 feet by 12 feet. I'm going to draw us a picture to 8 by 12, okay? And then, all right, so there's my, let's do it right here. My garden, 8 by 12, okay? And it says it has a uniform walkway all the way around. I don't know what the width is, so when I don't know something in math, I give it a variable. But it's the same all the way around. So this width and this width are the same. Okay. What is the width of the walkway if this whole area, the entire thing, has an area of 192 square feet? Okay. Well, I'm going to give this thing a dimension. I'm going to say it has a dimension of 8 plus 2x. Why? Because it's this 8 plus this x and this x. And then I'm going to give this a dimension of 12 plus 2x. So y, this 12, and then this x and this x. So what I know is that when I multiply 2x plus 8, when I multiply that by 2x plus 12, I'm going to get 192 square feet. So let's do some math, all right? So this would be 4x squared plus 24x plus 16x plus 96 equals 192. Well, 4x squared plus 24x, oops, we're combining those, so plus 24 plus 16, 40x. And then let's subtract that and negative 192 over. So negative 96 minus 192 is negative 96. Now that it's equal to 0, I can factor and solve. So let's factor. I'm going to factor out a 4 first, make it a little bit prettier. And you can do that, okay? If the numbers are too big, see if you can factor something out, and I can factor a 4 out. Then I can do my negative 24 and 10. Two numbers that multiply to negative 24 but add to 10, 12 and negative 2. So I have an x plus a 12, and then I have an x minus 2, and I'm going to set those both equal to 0, and I'm going to solve. So subtract 12. I get x equals negative 12. Well, distance can't be negative, right? So let's hope this one's positive. Well, it looks like it is, positive 2. Okay, so my solution would be that the width of the walkway is 2 feet. And that looks like it is option A. All right, number 41, the formula for the area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. Which equation shows the formula in terms of r? I'm solving for that r. So first of all, I'm going to get that pi out of the way. So pi and r squared are being multiplied, so I'm going to divide by pi. So I have a divided by pi on the left, and I have r squared on the right. Well, what's the opposite of squaring something? It's to take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So now I have just r, and I have the square root of a divided by pi, which looks like option C, because the whole thing is in the square root. This option B has just the top in the square root. We want the whole thing in the square root.